Hey y'all, my name is Alyssa and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart and to a lot of people. You know them, you love them, you have them. Well, maybe you don't. It is the one and the only eyebrows. Let's talk about brows, baby. I'm gonna do all the talking. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things you're doing. Let's talk about brows. Okay, so I love brows. Could talk about them all day, obviously. And I feel like over the years, I've really learned a lot, mostly of like what not to do versus more so of like what to do. When I was in high school and I first started filling in my brows, I definitely like super filled them in with one of those like NYC pencils that are like 97 cents at Walmart, and they looked really, really bad, but it was a learning process, and I feel like you have to do that in order to get to where we are today. And if I can, I would love to prevent that from happening for a lot of other people. So if I can pass on any helpful tips to you guys about how to fill in your brows, how to make them look more defined, I would love to do that. I understand that a full brow is not for everyone. This is just how I typically fill in mine. But if you are interested in how I created a very super defined brow, then keep on watching. Okay, first and foremost, we are starting with a fresh face. So I like to begin by prepping my eyebrows, and by prepping I mean just going in with tweezers and making sure to get out any of those tiny little hairs that are going to peek through once you start filling in your brows, because I think that it also makes for a really good brow when you do it before versus after, because whenever you do it after, it just gets kind of messy and then your eyebrow starts to get a little red. So I like to do it beforehand, especially if you haven't plucked your eyebrows in a while and you know that there are some extra hairs in there that you need to get rid of, or if you want to get rid of. I mean, it's usually personal preference, but for me, if I know I want like a super sleek defined brow, I definitely want to go in with my tweezers before I put on any makeup, just to make sure that all of those hairs that are like in really sparse places that you probably wouldn't even notice, but I notice them, and this is sort of a part of my routine. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and go in with my tweezers and start plucking these eyebrows.
I keep them waiting. Makeup on fleek, high heels, ripped jeans, they're all waiting. I'm on my way. Looking in the mirror at myself like who that? Swag on 1,000.
All right, eyebrows have been plucked. They are a little red because I did grab a whole piece of my skin with my tweezers, but other than that, they're good. Now, I did this, I think a couple of nights ago, but I do like to go in with those little tiny razors. You can get them at Walmart or the drugstore. They're like, they come in a package of like 4, but that's what I like to use in between my brows, because I feel like tweezers are really good for getting those little tiny hairs around the arch. But when it comes to those like really tiny hairs you can't really see in the middle of your forehead, then I like to just get one of those razors and just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of like shave down that middle part, because I feel like you have a little bit more control and you definitely don't have to go through the painful process of plucking out all of your eyebrow hairs. But other than that, we're good to go. So my next step is applying my base makeup, which this is definitely not something you have to do, because a lot of times people will go in with eyebrows before their base makeup. But I like to go in with my base before my eyebrows, because I feel like once you have everything on and you start trying to put foundation around your eyebrows that are already so defined, sometimes you get foundation in them, sometimes you mess up sort of what the tail looks like after you've already spent so much time defining them. So that's why I do it, but I am going to save us some time by applying my base off camera, and I will be right back. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to take a spoolie and start combing my brows upward.
Body time.
All right, and now is the fun part, and I'm going to take my pencil and I'm gonna start outlining my brows before I do anything else. Okay, so going in with the Precisely My Brow from Benefit, I am just slowly drawing strokes of hair toward the front of my eyebrow, and I am not putting any pressure on my pencil. I'm just sort of pushing it against my eyebrow and letting the pencil do a lot of the work. And this is when a really pigmented pencil comes in handy. So start toward the front, and like I said, don't put a whole lot of pressure. And the reason that you sort of start toward the front instead of outlining the whole brow is because you want to start creating little tiny hairs. That way you can kind of know what you're working with before you start filling them in. And notice that I'm not drawing a super harsh line underneath my brows. I'm continuing to do those upward stroke motions. And the reason I do that is because we really want to avoid that super boxy look. So continue doing upward strokes as opposed to just drawing straight lines to fill in your eyebrows. So you guys can see that I'm just continuing to flick upwards. So if you find yourself doing a heavy hand, just kind of like extend your hand down to the bottom of your eyebrow pencil and then just kind of go in with an even lighter hand. So that's always a really good tip if you feel like you're going in a little bit too harshly on your brows. So now I'm just following sort of the natural curvature of my brows and I'm going to fill in. I don't mind this part being a little bit more harsh than the rest because I feel like we are doing a defined brow, so I don't mind if the back half of my brow looks a little bit more sharp than the front half because we really do sort of want that gradient effect. And I'm just going back in with a little bit more of that brow pencil toward the front just to kind of make sure it's where I want it to be, and this is personal preference. And yeah, I think this is it. So I'm gonna just quickly go into the next one.
Waiting, I keep them waiting. Makeup on fleek, high heels, ripped jeans, they're all waiting. I'm on my way, yeah. Looking in the mirror at myself like who that? Swag on 1,000 and my girls got my back. We just won the party, call me tequila shawty. We just won the party, yeah, yeah.
All right, I have finished filling them in with just the pencil. And as you guys can see, they are very well defined just going in with the pencil. And I really like how we have achieved this sort of gradient effect, which is sort of like what your natural eyebrow already has. The front of your eyebrow already is not always as dark as, say, the rest of it. So I think it's always important to kind of go with what's already there. So I think we've already done a really good job. It is a little messy, but don't worry because we are going to go back in with concealer and fix everything. But next we're going to go in with the Anastasia Beverly Hills pomade and kind of just fill in the areas of the brow, sort of like this area right here, that didn't necessarily get all of the pencil, just because the pencil, it's kind of hard to get into that area without like scraping the pencil. And also I feel like you waste a lot of product with your pencil by doing that. So that's what I like to, you know, sort of switch it up between the pomade and the pencil. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, going in with my dip brow, I am going to take the little tiny brush that actually comes with the dip brow because it has a really, really nice sort of angle to it, and I'm just barely tapping it into the pomade. The pomade is super pigmented, and you guys can see that I'm not really going in and refilling in every single part of my brow. I'm just going in those areas where I feel like the pencil didn't really reach, so toward the middle of the brow and also a little bit towards the top. I don't typically line the top of my eyebrows unless it's the little curvature right around that area right there. So this is a good way, especially if you're trying to get a shape that you want, if you want to achieve a better arch. This is a really good way of doing that. I think the pomade is super, super good when it comes to gliding on your skin and creating an arch as opposed to the pencil. So I think that they both do different things, and I like that the way they work together. So like I said, going in, I'm just going to start flicking it upward, sort of like what we did with the pencil, but I think with the pomade you get a lot more, I don't know how to describe it, but I think you get a lot more pigment when it comes to doing those upward motions when it comes to the pomade. And I think it also kind of gives that sort of hair-like quality toward the front as well. And like I said, when you're using a pomade, be sure to be extra, extra, extra careful because they are super pigmented, and toward the front, it can get really harsh. So start toward the back at first and then move toward the front, because by the time you get to the front, you're not gonna have as much pigment. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and fill the rest of them in right here and then move on to the next one.
Girls got my back. We just wanna party. Call me tequila shawty. We just wanna party. Yeah, yeah. You can bring your friends, we won't mind it. We just came to dance and go all night long. The look in your eyes, you can't hide it. Ooh, baby, I know I turn you on. You can bring your friends, we won't mind it. We just came to dance and go all night long. The look in your eyes, you can't hide it. Ooh, baby, I know I turn you on. When my friends pull around.
Okay, so I have finished with the pomade, and I love how much they were able to fill in those sparse areas and also like round out that top. Every time I use the pencil, I feel like I can never get that like smooth curvature, especially around like the arch of my brow. And with the pomade, I feel like I was really able to do that. And I know I told you guys, like, definitely use it sparingly, and I will show you guys, like, I barely went in. Like, this is a brand new pomade, and look at how little I used. And like I said, this product is so pigmented that it goes such a long way. Like, this will probably last you like months and months and months, and that's why I think I'm okay with splurging on higher end brow products, because I know that they're gonna last me a lot longer than ones that I'm not as happy with and are also like maybe not gonna last me as longer. So I always feel like it's a really nice trade-off. But we are not done. We're going to go in with a little bit of concealer, and we are going to go in with a little bit of concealer, and I am going to really kind of just smooth out this part right here, especially around the areas of my brows, like around the tail, because I feel like this could always be sharpened up just a little bit. So I am going to do that, and I will show you guys how I do that as well. Going in with a flat concealer brush, I am going to just put a little bit of concealer on the back of my hand. So I'm not going to put a whole lot of concealer, just a little tiny bit. And I am using a concealer that is similar to my skin tone, so you guys can see it's sort of pretty much just like my skin tone, just a little bit lighter. And the reason I do that is because I don't like a super, super light concealer under my eyes, because I do feel like it's very noticeable if you don't blend it out super, super well. So I am going to start toward the front, as you guys can see. And I'm just going to sort of use just a little bit of concealer. Like I said, all it takes is a little tiny bit, because as you guys can see there, I got a little bit too much, and now it's going to take me a little bit time to blend it all out. So my advice is to definitely get the tiniest bit of concealer at first, blend that out, and if you feel like you need more, then go back in and start sort of underlining your eyebrows. So I'm just going to go back in with a little bit more, and I think this is the most satisfying part, and that is the tail of your eyebrow, because I think the secret to getting a super defined brow is to making sure that tail looks super, super sharp and defined. And this is really a trick. Even if you don't end up wanting like a super sharp tail, you can still line it up to make sure everything looks smooth. So I know sometimes when we watch like Instagram, YouTube tutorials, sometimes they'll kind of go overboard with the, you know, like concealer on the top of the eyebrows. I don't like to do that, just because I think that it takes a lot of time to blend out and it's not super realistic. So I just use a little bit on the top of the eyebrow and a little bit on the bottom, just enough to make it look smooth. So sort of like that. And yeah, I think that one's done. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the other one.
They got the top down on our way, yeah. We're on our way, yeah. Turn that music up, you know we don't give a what. On our way, yeah. We're on our way, yeah. Pull up to the party like my name is the life. Tension so thick you could cut with a knife. Ask me how I do that. Been fly came to dance and go all night long. The look in your eyes, you can't hide it. Ooh, baby, I know I turn you on. You can bring your friends, we won't mind it. We just came to dance and go all night long.
All right, so they are cleaned up and I love the way that they're looking. I think they look really nice and defined and just super sharp, which is sort of what I always go for, like pretty much whenever I want to put on makeup. But the last step, which is super, super, super important, is brow gel. And I think the good thing with brow gel is that you don't have to splurge. You can get a $3 brow gel. You can get pretty much whatever you want, tinted brow gel, whatever. But I think it is super important to just keep everything that you've done in place, because like you know, you're doing a lot of work. So like you definitely want to make sure that it stays. So I'm going to go ahead and apply brow gel super quick.
If you catching a vibe, we ain't gonna stop for nothing. Yeah, you can bring your friends, we won't mind it. We just came to dance and go all night long. The look in your eyes, you can't hide it. Ooh, baby, I know I turn.
All right, you guys, so this completes the entire tutorial. I hope that you all enjoyed everything that we did. And like I said, if you have questions, just feel free to comment. I will gladly answer, because I realize that everyone's eyebrows are super, super different. So if you need help on figuring things out, feel free to contact me. I'm always super glad to help. But yeah, this is just how I create my super defined brow. So it can be different for everyone. But yeah, I'm really excited I was able to do this. I really like how they turned out. I think they look very bold, and I don't know, I just really like them. I will list everything I use down below in the description box. And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Look in your eyes, you can't hide it.